Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining. Yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, the day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing, except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice, or whatever you want to call him.
Before we go any further, let me give you the full picture of what was happening in that room before Crockett even sat down. The day before this hearing, Kash Patel had testified in the Senate, and that did not go well either. He got into a shouting match with Senator Cory Booker. He called Senator Adam Schiff, quote, a political buffoon at best, and the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. He yelled at Democratic senators that their time was over before their time was actually over. And he called the handling of a question, quote, bulls on your entire career in Congress. That was day one. Day two is what you are watching right now. And before Crockett's 5 minutes began, something else had already happened in that same hearing room that you need to see. Because while Crockett was laying out every qualification failure and every institutional breakdown, another congressman had already tried to get one simple answer out of Kash Patel. One yes or no question. And what happened next is why this hearing became one of the most watched clips of the entire year.
What I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe. I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues. And frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem.
All right, let's stay here for a second. Because that response from Patel, I don't give a damn what they say about me as long as I'm succeeding in the mission, that is the answer that was supposed to end the conversation. That is the line rehearsed to sound decisive, confident, above the fray, and the Republican congressman set it up perfectly. Clickbait auditions for the Academy Award, MSNBC, theatrics. The whole framing was designed to make Crockett's 5 minutes look like a performance, look like noise, look like something you scroll past. But here's the problem with that framing, and this is the part of this hearing that almost nobody is talking about enough. Kash Patel did not dispute a single specific thing Crockett said, not one. She said he was the only FBI director in history to have never served with the FBI before his appointment. He did not dispute that. He listed his resume: public defender, prosecutor, House Intelligence Committee, NSC, Department of Defense. None of those are the FBI. The fact stands, she said he posted a wrong suspect in the Charlie Kirk case twice and deleted it. He did not dispute that either. His response was mission success statistics. When you cannot challenge the specific allegation, you pivot to aggregate numbers. That pivot is what tells you where the actual weakness is. She said his FBI told the Senate it needs 14 years to fully staff itself. He did not dispute that. He said the men and women of the FBI are empowered and hitting the streets harder than ever. But empowered agents hitting streets as ICE substitutes is not the same thing as a fully staffed, fully functional counterintelligence and counterterrorism bureau. Those are two completely different claims, and Patel chose to answer the one Crockett did not ask. She said right-wing extremism is the source of the vast majority of domestic threats. She entered Republican lawmakers' death threats into the record. Republican lawmaker death threats, not Democratic ones, to make that point bipartisan and inarguable. He did not engage with that at all. The South Carolina congressman called it clickbait, but those were public court records, congressional records, statements from sitting members of his own party who said they were leaving Congress because someone was threatening to kill their wife. That is not clickbait, that is documentation. And then there is the ABC moment. That moment happened in the same room on the same day before Crockett even reached the microphone. And what it revealed is not just evasiveness on one question. What it revealed is the shape of the entire strategy. When the question is uncomfortable, you don't answer it. You mock the questioner, you recite the alphabet, you pivot to statistics, you call it political innuendo, you say you're focused on national safety, not political games. And the moment someone calls that out directly, as Crockett did, you call their 5 minutes an audition for MSNBC. But here is what does not disappear by calling something theatrical. The fact that Patel admitted under oath that he has not personally reviewed the entirety of the Epstein files. He is the director of the FBI. This is the largest sex trafficking investigation the Bureau has ever conducted. And his testimony was that he has not read all of it. His explanation was that he has been busy delivering the safest country in modern American history. That was his answer. Not, I have a team reviewing it, and here's what they found. Not, here is the specific process and timeline. Just, I have been busy. The mission is succeeding. Look at the murder rate. There is something else sitting underneath all of this that connects directly to what Crockett said about qualified people being pushed out. Because it is not just a philosophical argument about FBI leadership experience. There are active federal lawsuits filed by senior FBI officials who say they were unlawfully terminated, not for misconduct, not for performance, for touching cases connected to Donald Trump. And those same officials, the ones who were gone before Patel could even fully settle in, are the same people who carried the institutional knowledge that does not show up in a statistic. The kind of knowledge that tells you whether a lead in a high-profile case is credible. The kind of knowledge that tells you whether the person you are about to announce as a suspect actually did it before you post it publicly and have to delete it twice. Crockett said she had no confidence. That is not a slogan. That is a conclusion that follows from a specific chain of documented events. Wrong suspect announced publicly. Deleted. HBCU domestic terrorism addressed by silence. Right-wing extremism threat data ignored in favor of broad crime statistics. Qualified career officials removed. Epstein files partially reviewed by the director who was supposed to oversee the largest sex trafficking investigation in FBI history. And when asked a direct yes or no question about whether the president's name is in those files, the alphabet. The Republican response to all of this was to call it an Academy Award audition. And Patel's response was, I don't care. Here's the thing about I don't care. It lands differently depending on what you are being accused of. If someone is accusing you of bad optics or poor messaging or playing politics, I don't care is a power move. It signals you are above the noise. But when someone is accusing you of posting the wrong murder suspect on social media and then deleting it, when someone is accusing you of redirecting counterterrorism resources to immigration enforcement while domestic terrorism targets HBCUs, when someone is accusing you of presiding over an institution that told Congress it needs 14 years to be fully functional again in that context, I don't care is not a power move. It is a confession that you have no answer to the specific charges on the table. Crockett said, we just need to tell you bye-bye. The hearing ended. Patel kept his job. The statistics kept getting cited. The alphabet moment kept circulating online. And the Epstein files, the ones Patel confirmed he had not fully reviewed. The ones a federal judge said the government should comprehensively disclose to the public, those files are still sitting in a building on Pennsylvania Avenue with names inside them that neither the FBI director nor the Attorney General appear particularly eager to read out loud. Drop a comment and tell me after watching that exchange, do you think there is any version of a congressional hearing that actually produces consequences for Kash Patel? Or has, I don't care, become the official policy of the Department of Justice?